Here we go. So, you were born here?
I was born in Mrs. Lawrence's place, alongside in that gorse patch between Eddie Brown and the next house down.
Gotcha.
Mrs. Nicholson, she was called.
Okay.
And she's some relation to Nichols. Yeah, Mrs. Nichols.
Okay.
She was some relation to the Browns, but
So
she was the midwife.
She was the
where I was born.
midwife. Okay, so you were born at the midwife's house.
Yeah,
Okay. What year was that?
1936, July the 3rd.
Okay. End of the Depression.
Yeah.
Labor government.
Yeah, it was.
Yes.
Yeah, the start of the World War, really.
Yeah. And so and then this is your family house?
It's where I lived all my life, yeah.
You lived in this one house all your life?
Yeah,
That's
I have.
pretty remarkable way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, well, when Dad came, he originally came to a house up the road, up there, and then he come and he built this house one, like they did in the old days. Not much money, so they built it one room at a time.
Yeah.
Now the inside of it's changed,
Yeah.
but the basic outside structure is still the same removed bloody structure as Dad put up, and he had a carpenter friend,
Yeah.
a chap called Pendlebury built Pendlebury from Blackball.
So that's Frank Pendlebury's.
I don't know.
Okay,
I don't know the relationship, but
Okay. Yeah.
yeah,
So your dad was a miner?
yeah. He ended up 46 years. He climbed the hill, up, played billy goats up
He was in
to
Roa.
Roa. He was.
He worked at Roa.
He was the oldest miner left in the Roa mine.
Yeah. Okay.
When he finally quit. The Japs come and they wanted to shift work, and when it come to Dad, they wanted him to work all night shift. So he finally said, enough's enough, and come off the hill.
Okay, so you went to school in Blackball, or?
No, I
Roa?
started school in Roa, and I went there till what in those days was Standard 2.
Yes.
And then they started to get trouble keeping a teacher.
Okay.
And they would come, and then they'd be gone, and we got to the stage where some of the local women were filling the gaps in, teaching us. And my neighbour, who was my little cousin and my best friend, lived next door, and he was down at Blackball School. And of course he kept saying to me, come down to Blackball School with me. You know, because half the time there was no teacher up there. So at that stage there was, I think, 36 school kids up there in Roa. So it was quite a, and it was a one class teacher, you know, she one class taught all. So anyway, he finally talked me into it, and I said to me mum and dad, and I said, I want to go to Blackball School. So I went down to Blackball School, and I actually started in Standard 1, and not Standard 2 like I was up Roa, because I'd lost so much schooling that I couldn't keep up with what they had in Standard 2. So I went back to Standard 1 down there, and I took it from there.
So why did they build them here?
I don't really know, but mainly I think because of the shortage of housing.
Okay.
Because Stafford Street in Blackball, for example, was virtually all state houses in the early days. There were state houses everywhere in Blackball. Half of Brodie Street was state houses. You know, all those ones, but the only one that wasn't a state house in Brodie Street was the one that Catherine Cox's daughter's in now.
So
you know where there's when you've heard them talk about the rise, and when they're talking about the old mine, and you read things and it says they come out the rise, that's where it is over in that gorse. and it's a concrete shed, and with the tunnel that goes down, but it's all been blocked off, you know, sealed off. But that's where the rise. Now, whether that had something to do with some of the houses, because in those days there was no bathhouse for that.
Yeah.
So when Dad first come, for example, he used a tub. And, well, old George Linley, or Father Linley as I used to nickname him, old George was the same. He was in the house that Ralph bought up there.
Yeah.
And old Evan Jones, he was down in that green paddock I created in front of Linley's, because that's old George Linley's place. That was Evan Jones, he was a Welshman. And the next one up the road was a born and bred 100% Kiwi. That was old Malcolm McFadden, Don's father. And then the next one up was a Scotsman. That was Andy McDougall from Scotland. Across the road we had a Yorkshireman. So our whole community was virtually, and there was Yorkshiremen down in the trees there. And there was a retired pensioner here, but he was a Pom, just where he come from, Mr. Ecclesley. But he married a married girl there when he was younger. So we had the United Nations here, we had the British Isles, put it that way.
So in Roa would be about 30 houses up there?
Roa? Oh. Well, it depends what you call a house, but if you call a single man's batch, they probably had more than that.
Okay.
You know, there was a lot of single man batches. When you go up there now and to Noel's place and you look up the hill, well, all that hill front there was batches all along there. And the remains of them there. In the bottom end one, that's where there was big tennis courts in there. It's still sitting there under the grass. Last time I was shooting up there, the tennis court was still there. And all the houses directly across from Noel's, and there's 3 of them gone. And they like where he's got his glass house and that now, they were all state houses, all built by the state. And the one Noel's in, that was my Auntie Ag's, and she had a little homestay sort of system under New Zealand, as we talk now, but she only had a couple of borders, you know, and that's where Noel's house is now.
Okay. So, and Blackball would have been quite big?
Oh yeah, a lot of people.
A lot of people.
Yeah, I don't know exactly the figure, but put it this way, that we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 grade of footballers, and we could fill the lot up comfortably. Especially when the Maori boys started coming. Because the Maori boys, in those days, the freezing works had closed for 2 months or whatever it was. And there was always a section of the Maori boys come, and they come to Blackball because every one of them got employed. They just arrive 6, 8, might be 10, might be 18. You know, and that's why they built the community centre with the beds in originally. And they'd come, and of course they were all young working men. So they were, and they were Maoris. And the 3 things they liked the communal sport and communal activity, drinking beer and playing music. And so they fitted into the community straight away. The only team that we used to struggle to fill was what they called the juniors in those days. And that was the next second highest team. But these guys would come out the woodwork and they'd all play for the juniors. So one day you'd be struggling to get 13 and the Maori boys would arrive on the Friday night. So by Sunday you had 30 to pick for. And there were some real talented people amongst them, you know. And musicians, and we even had our own Bing Crosby. He got killed up in the rail mine.
Okay.
So when the artery is called. But we'd have a Friday night dance down there in the Odd Fellas Hall, where Wendy is now. And we'd start off the evening and we'd have Molly McLennan or Mrs. Big Emma, I call her, Emma Naylor, Stan Naylor's wife. There was Big Emma and Little Emma Naylor. And she'd play the piano, or Molly McLennan, and we had a boy, Alan, used to play the drums. And we'd start off on Friday night. There was always a Friday night dance, just for the locals more or less. And we'd start off with the drums and the piano. And then about 10 o'clock the cop would pay a visit to the pub. So, righto boys, time you cleared out. So they'd clear out all right. They brought tea chests, the homemade tea chest for a bass, and washing board with a brush. The next guy'd have a saxophone, and someone else have a piano, accordion, and half a dozen guitars. And all of a sudden, we'd have a 10-piece band some nights over in the,
Yeah. So get back to your story. So you went to Blackball School. Did you go to high school?
Yeah, I did. I went 2 years to high school, and then I got...
Grey High. So you catch the train in, or...?
No, we went by bus.
You had a bus in?
Yeah.
Okay. And so after those 2 years, you started in the mine?
Yeah, after about a month, yeah. Yeah, Mum, when I knocked off because, not because I didn't love high school, because I did. And I did pretty well, I did very well actually.
Okay.
So there wasn't the schoolwork, what got me was the travel.
Yeah.
I got sick of travelling, So at any rate I decided I'd knock off, and Mum kept me here, and for about 2 months she said, you're not going down the mine, not wasting your education like that. But at any rate I got sick of sitting around home, and I was restless all the time looking for something to do. So one day I just walked into the mine's office, and I come up home and I said, here, make me afternoon lunch, Ma, I'm off to work. So that was my first day down the Blackball mine. Well,
so
wasn't the first time I'd been down there, but...
What did you start doing? What was you doing?
I started as a box cleaner. The lowest form of life. I was the lowest paid in the mine, and I was paid to clean the boxes out because they wouldn't bottom. And what had happened, there'd be a build-up of coal.
Yes.
So they all went across the weighbridge now. You put 300 boxes a day through. Those boxes are coming, and each time they're weighing the same coal because it didn't come out when they tipped it, because it was.
Yes.
So they hired someone to clean the bottom of the boxes.
Okay.
So that's what I started off as. And then the next, in the mine there was a progression. And it didn't work for everyone, but for a lot of the boys it did the same thing. They'd start off as a box cleaner. They might only do it for a week or 2 weeks. Then they'd go onto the rope road if they'd wanted. And that's what I wanted. I wanted to go on the rope road because I loved fresh air. I didn't want to go into the mine like a lot of them wanted to go in the mine trucking, because they could get wet time in there and get short shifts and, and all those sort of things. So I stayed mainly on the rope road out where the fresh air was. But
so on the rope road, what was the job?
Unclipping the
boxes.
Full boxes, hooking the empty ones off. They were endless ropes.
Yes.
And they had a huge great winch there. And it crackled and roared. And I'm having trouble at the minute trying to get a hearing aid.
Yes.
And I finally accomplished it, but they wonder why a person was deaf, There was no such things as earmuffs. And I'm working, 30 feet or 40 feet away from this winch, and every time they I put some extra boxes on, the more boxes on, the bit louder it cracked, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
And I worked there more or less. I had odd times, a short spell up in Roa. They took a few of us up to Roa for a short spell. But I worked there mainly for 10 years until they were getting to the stage where I was the youngest one left. And they wanted to transfer me down to Dobson. And I wasn't going. By then I'd made up my mind.
So after 10 years, the mine closed.
Yeah, never closed exactly when I left, but only a few months later.
Yeah. So talk about that. What was the feeling in town? That people knew it was going to close?
Yeah, well, we'd grown accustomed to it, mainly because they kept nibbling a few out.
Yeah.
For a start, they started off by just asking for volunteers. Anyone want to come and work at Dobson?
Okay.
Because, you know, the writing was on the wall. And I remember quite a few of the boys that actually took the offer straight away. Because Dobson was £1 a day more than any other mine on the truckers' contracts.
Yeah.
The Dobson Union secretary had been cleverer than the negotiators he negotiated with. And the result is they ended up with a contract where they were getting £1 a day, £1 a day in modern bloody language, more than any other truckers on the coast. So the boys weren't reluctant to go there when it was obvious how mine was going to close, because they were going to a higher paid job.
So why did this one close? Why did Blackball close?
Why did Blackball close?
Mm.
Well, just because it was, the more people they got rid of, the more chance it was going to close, but mainly cost-wise, you know what I mean? When you're running as many pumps and you know, Blackball was one of the, I don't know any other mine that had an underground substation. So it was really a modern day issue, a modern day article compared with what the other mines were. You know, we had electricity for a start. That was another reason I wanted to stay where I was, because they had electricity and we had electric light bulbs. But that was on the main haulage line.
Yeah, yeah.
And our system of taking the coal out the mine was done by huge conveyor belts. Today they use water and all the rest, but these were conveyor belts. And one of the unwritten laws in Blackball was you weren't to ride the conveyor belt to get out, you know, to get out the mine. And they were long conveyor belts, and they had a joint in the middle. So what you had to do is ride up the belt and jump off and then jump on the other one, and it'd take you out to the surface, you see. And of course, the wags of the outfit and the clever ones, they wanted to sneak out if they one eye on the boss, you know. And they'd jump the conveyor belt. And they'd whistle up the conveyor belt, take you up there in a couple of minutes, take you up faster than the hauler would. But you had to be careful, of course, because if you made a mistake, lifted your head up too high, you didn't have a head. But no one ever, to my knowledge, no one ever got hurt. But it was, it's one of the reasons probably it shut down, because of the amount of water they was pumping, and they were getting less coal, you see, because when I first went there, for example, I was worked with Bob Buchanan, Annie Buchanan, that used to live in down over the edge of the terrace. I worked with Bob, and he tipped 360 boxes a day. And towards the end, when I was there, some days you didn't get 100 boxes of coal. Yeah. But you'd gone from 28 pair of miners down to 12. and that sort of thing. They whittled away and whittled away, and it was all in the process of slowly but surely costing you out of a job, because the more you took away, less coal you produced, and they couldn't in those days, or at least they reckon they couldn't sell the slack coal. So that's why around Blackpool, if you know where to look, they had slack heaps all over the place. You know, where they were going to shoot, have their little gun club, they wanted to have the, well, if you go in there and start digging, you're going to dig Blackpool coal, because that hole was all filled up with slack. And same down the Jimmy Rankin's, that piece where the orchard is, you know, and they couldn't clear the slack coal, being nuggety coal, lumps and small noble coal, no, screen coal they used to call it. There was no trouble selling that at all, but they just, the bulk of your coal that was coming out of Blackpool mine in the end was slack coal. So that was less than the amount of money you could be making because you couldn't sell it.
Okay, so let's talk about the culture of the workplace. Everyone belonged to the union.
Yes, yeah.
Everyone.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, there wasn't anyone in the mine that didn't belong to the union.
Okay. Yeah. And so everyone, the solidarity was there, really. Yeah.
Eh?
Solidarity.
Oh, yeah. Well, there was, you know, we had one of them signs they got in Renanga over the hall. United we stand, divided we fall.
Yes.
And that was it. We were union men now, let's face it, but we were a community that worked together, and we worked underground together. And what you do, you form a tight band because you're relying on each other underground, and you're relying on it for your livelihood. And so, as I said before, those that work together play together. So when we come out the mine and there was something to be done in the town, there was the core union workers. They mightn't have said it's the union that's doing it, but it was the union workers that were actually doing the work. You'd get people like Alec Poker, Patrick's father, entrepreneurial in their head, and ability like Andy Kennedy, Pat's father, to get things done. And we had Billy Mountford in particular, who was he was a carpenter, but he was great at heavy grade carpentry, lots of, as you might say, bridge building. But he worked mainly a lot around the mines, doing their heavy outside work, like building binses and stuff like that. But they did build houses, but so you had that planning outfit, you had the people that was thinking ahead, and like Sir Jock Meikle and there was several, and I don't like to mention too many because you always miss someone.
Yeah.
And they would get together, and they were union men too, like Sir Andy and them all worked down the mine, and before, and what wasn't a union man like Billy Mountford and them that were carpenters were living off and in the union environment, you know.
Yes.
So they did things like union workers. Well, I mean, half the time they worked union hours, but they were staying on site, of course.
So you had this core of people. So things happen in the town if they need.
Yes, well, they sat one day, I hear them talking, and I said, what's the big discussion about? Oh, they reckon it's about time we had a fire brigade. See? And these people were there throwing out the suggestions, and they had the people there with the drive, like of Pat's father. He was in the council at the time, old Andy. And you had these people with the drive to start to push it and to get it done. You had people like Billy Mountford who would come along and say, well, here's what I think we could do to build a fire station. And, when you look at that old ambulance room in Blackpool, you know, the ambulance, St John's ambulance room, you're looking at Billy Mountford. Because that was what he thought. But it wasn't old Geordie Anderson, Owen's father. I don't know whether you were here when Owen was alive, Paul, were you?
Yes, yeah. No,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Owen's father, he suddenly said one day, you know, we could really do with some St John's here. So I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll start a class. And my middle brother, who later on come a nurse, male nurse down in Grey, was one of his first candidates, and he was 11-year-old. And so about 10 or 12 of them started off as cadets. And there was Geordie driving the boat and doing it by training them himself. And then along came Waiuta collapsed, the mine, along came Sid Ramsden. And old Sid was a mini doctor, really. You know, he's one of these guys that reckon he could patch anything. And all of a sudden we had a strong group of young 14-year-olds of that. And every day, every Sunday when there was football, or Saturday if there was hockey or soccer or whatever there was a St John's man there. And he always had a cadet with him. And we always used to talk, because you could tell who they were by I don't know where they got them, whether they were given from the hospital, but they all had wooden suitcases.
So I've got one.
Yeah. When you open them up.
Yes. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. Well, from that, my brother, for example, spent 28 years working in the mines, and the whole 28 years he was involved with St John's.
Okay.
So, you know.
So, yeah, I'm getting a very nice picture here, Walter. So, what about the role of the woman in the community? What did they
Well, they're a wee bit different. A lot of the women started off doing things by having their little social groups, but they were church groups.
Okay.
And they would work as a unit, and then they'd have a little sale. And used to see all the women, for example, around here, used to have sugar bag pennies. And they had lace around the outside. And they'd make all these and hand gloves for lifting trays and, you know, all that. And then they'd have the usual, of course, blackberry jam and off the road. And they'd have a little mini sale. And then later on, I don't know who was directly involved in starting that, but they had what we called the Women's Institute. You know, and they quickly got nicknamed the Wild Indians. So that was the women. They formed themselves and they become a big group. You know, they swooped on most of the young women, and they joined in. And in those days, well, there wasn't very much else to do really, but so you got the young ones, whereas today it's elderly people that's holding it together. But in those days they got all the young ones, and then we had they involved themselves in the Oddfellows Lodge, for example. There was more women when I joined the Oddfellows Lodge. There was more women than men in there.
So it was a mixed group.
Yeah, it was a mixed group all the time.
And what did it do, the lodge? What
well, it was a friendly society. It was
welfare sort of thing.
Yeah, well, it was welfare society. And over there on, I got a 50-year bloody. I'll just show you what I mean. I've been in the lodge, I'm still in it. Yeah. See?
Yeah.
Now, they did welfare work and they used to be like the Masonic Lodge.
Yeah.
They weren't scared to throw some money around, but their big thing was with them, for the likes of young workers in Blackpool, we joined the lodge. Now I joined for one reason and one reason only. They had a second funeral fund for when you get buried.
Okay.
See? And it was just what you'd call today a petticoat amount, petty rental, and to put into it. It's like a super scheme, but it went into a fund so that when you died, and it was an invested fund within the lodge.
Yeah.
And so today, I'm sitting there today, and if I had no other money, that fund is enough in it to bury me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we had all that sort of thing. And then, of course, the women were highly involved in the Lizzie's Loonies
In the
when
wet.
they had the community repertory society.
okay.
Giving them a fancy name, but to us they were the Looney Toonies, you know. And they were mainly women.
So they did shows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But everything was done as a group. We had,
Yes.
for example, we'd have the Oddfellows Ball,
Yes.
and it was the only ball on the coast where women actually built ball dresses to go to. And the hall was big, and there was always a fruit salad supper. Every solitary one that went to that ball that wanted to eat got a fruit salad supper. All run by women. The whole lot was controlled. The back half of the hall was made into rows and rows of sit down, and the women controlled that totally. You know? So it was that was a really basically speaking, that was a woman's night.
Yeah.
Because the women controlled that virtually from where to go, apart from the fact that they'd get the men in to shift the screen and, you know, a bit of the heavier work.
Yeah.
But the women, once the actual hall was set up, then they proceeded to produce the tucker, and on top of that they produced the ball dresses.
Yeah.
And you know, so yeah, it was a woman's show really.
Yeah.
Old Paddy Webb used to sit over in the corner in a huge photograph, and I often wondered where it went to when they knocked the hall down, you know. But it'd be bigger than that television screen there, and old Paddy Webb was sitting in the corner because he was a West Coast
Yes.
member of Parliament, you know.
Yes. So it's 1951 strike?
Strike.
The lockout?
Yeah.
Or you fellas on
Yeah, no, I started work straight after it.
straight
really.
after. So
But I saw a lot of the results of it.
can you remember?
Yeah, I can remember quite a bit about, not so much the strike, but the happenings after the strike, yeah, or during the strike, be better to say. Like I remember when they took over the fish and chip shop and turned it into a butcher shop, and like some Paul Berry's father had given him a bullock,
Okay.
and they'd be in there working away, cutting it up, and all that sort of stuff, you know.
So that was the sort
And
of
yeah,
relief depot was
relief. Yeah, relief. That was in that particular shop. It was only a little fish and chip shop, but that's where they broke their meat up.
Yeah.
And yeah, those I can't really say too much because Dad was up the hill there, and he had to work all the time because Roll was a gas mine, and
Yes,
the you know, the unionists were clever enough to know that if they wanted a job when they come back, you had to have people working, pumping water out of it, or in Rower's case, you had to have someone up there monitoring what was happening with gas. But apart from that, in the end it started to get fairly tough, and people started to go shooting and stuff like that. And I know my younger brother and the brother's going to have birthday in a week. Him and Jim Collins. Old Jim was an old coal miner from down there, and he gathered half a dozen of the boys that were keen shooters, and he organised them into a group, and they took off out to Cobra for a fortnight, up into the hills, and just lived off their wits for a fortnight, you know. Bill was one of them, old Jim took. And that was an example of what people clubbing together as guys. And there was a wee bit of murmur about them doing things like that, and but on the whole, she was pretty rock solid, you know.
So the mine closed, and then a lot of people shifted out. Houses became
empty. They weren't worth any money at all, and a lot of them had been bought on loan money that the state had provided.
Yes.
They had a special name for it, but
state advances loans.
But my brother, for example, bought a house down there. It was a nice home too. But when the mine closed, he just couldn't get nothing for it. And he's the boy I mentioned about spent 28 years in the St John's.
Yes.
He went down to Renanga, and he worked in the Strongman mine down there. But John's house was worth nothing, but it was worth considerable when to the people that got it for nothing, because they just broke it down in sections, took it away and rebuilt it.
Okay.
And that's one of the vacant sections down the
So better that happened.
the main road. Yeah, well, there's a lot of that, and then we had an odd occasion where
fire.
Strange things happened. You know, like smoke coming out the chimney, but other places as well. And we had those sort of problems. For example, we had a house over the back here, and he got £15 for it. It was pound notes in those days. £15 for it. Diggers hadn't had a house down in the oak trees down there, and that was a lovely little place, but it was only 2 bedroom. But she wanted £100 for it. And this Christchurch woman come here, and she insulted Mary by refusing that. No, I'm not paying £100 for this. You know, this is just. So Mary said, "You can bugger off. I'll pull it down before I give you it for any less." And they thought she was joking, but she weren't the next week. But it took a week to pull it down because it was all made of 6-inch nails. Everyone said, "Oh, state nails holding it together." But so we lost a house there. We lost one here, and one next door here. They all went, and Joneses went. Now, Jones was up the road opposite where the green paddock is there. That was the last place where a guy run a trucking firm. He used to have a trucking firm in Blackball. He used to go from the goods shed to Blackball with stuff, you know. Yeah. Well, that's where he finished up, and that's when that trucking firm died, really. But
so, and then the hippies started to turn up?
Yeah, and then my mate did what I still abuse him for. He brought the first hippie into the town. And he laughs, he still laughs today. And I remember when he brought him in, I hit him up, you know, because he played for New Zealand. He was a big fella. And he played for New Zealand in the front row. And he'd be a great mate of mine. And I said to him, Scully, you be. You brought the first hippie into this town, you brought Gordon in. And it started from there. Gordon went into a nice home and was the only home in Blackpool that had a chap called Bill Walker had owned it, and he had a hot water system running through it and made it a hot house. And he used to grow everything, you know, clever green-fingered guy.
Yeah.
So Gordon bought Bill's house because it was worth nothing. So that was Gordon, the first hippie. And then Charlie Layton and one or two girls started to appear. And we slowly started to involve a new group in the town, you know. Yeah. And they were accepted, but you know, people just didn't quite dig this business, so these people not wanting to go to work because that wasn't Blackpool. Yeah. If you lived in Blackpool, you went to work. Yeah. So these bunch come, and then of course Gordon pulls out the peach pipe, starts puffing marijuana, and all hell went down. People really didn't like that much at all. But, you know, they grew on you in the end, and really most of them were a harmless bunch, except that we come from working people who used to work. So we started to resent the fact that they were sitting there doing nothing and we was going to work, you know. And that didn't wash down at all too well. But over the years that's gone by, the town's changed and the hippies have floated away and in their own marijuana smoke, I suppose you could say. But yeah, it was rather a unique time. There were some real characters amongst them, but there was also a little element there that wasn't so good, you know. And I think that's what you see today, is that elements come more into focus. But there was never anyone I knew or that was taking hard drugs. And then one boy come and he eventually died. And he was a nice guy, but he was obviously on something. And he was a brilliant musician, you know, and he could play anything you wanted. But most of the time when you saw him, I wouldn't mention his name, but most of the time you saw him, he wasn't with us, you know. I remember going to a dance over in the brick house, and the hippies, they were all, or not all of them, but the bulk of them, the large bulk of them were talented people. And you'd see the talents in different ways. Paintbrush, great, you get a great artist. Then you'd be like us, we said, well, we're having a party over Pat Kendi and me and Jane there. They're having a party over at the brick house over there. So I goes along to the party, and I was amazed, you know, because there's all these hippies, and they had about 8 playing music, and one would fall over half stoned or half drunk, and he'd pass the saxophone to the next one, and he'd start playing. And that's when I first realised just how talented Huey Poland was, because he was lying in the corner there, and someone gave him a nudge and put a violin in his hand, and all of a sudden he had a fiddle of truth, you know. Brilliant guy. But even Jane played the saxophone.
Did she?
And Bev Caves, remember Bev?
Yes.
Yeah, well, what they do, when they're getting tired, they just pass to the next one. So the party went to 6:30 in the morning. And during that night, the hippies supplied all the music for the whole night, you know. Yeah. One guy sat up on the drums and beat the drums. I went there about 9 o'clock at night, and he was still beating them at 6 o'clock in the morning when I decided to go.
How do you see it now? How do you see Blackball now? What's happened?
Well, I see it vastly different because we're no longer a community. Not that there's anything wrong with what we are, but we're not the tight-knit community that we were before. Pure and simply because mainly the work element. If you work together, you play together, as I said. And now people don't work together.
All doing different jobs.
Yeah, they've all got different jobs. And I often say to my brother, if you want to see how Blackball's changed, park your car on top of Fayon's Hill and see what happens. Because your car's no longer coming home at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Because that was the day shifts, the last workers in the mine. And that's why, for most of the miners in Blackball, they'd had tea by 4 o'clock because they'd come out the mine at 3 and their wives knew that they'd be wanting a feed. So by 5 o'clock, everyone had had tea. They're not getting home now at 5 o'clock.
No.
And so that side of it's all changed. Well, I mean, we could run football training, for example, and start at 6 o'clock at night. You can't do it today, pure and simply because everyone's got a different job at a different time. Whereas we're down the mine, there was 100 down the mine and 86 up row or whatever there was, and we all knocked off
at the same time
by 3 o'clock. Yeah. So that's the major change. And the other change, of course, is, as I said, when you start to change populations and you bring in outsiders, they bring outside ideas that was never ever there before. And mainly, I think, because people were just too poor to do it. But I've never seen a high fence in Stafford Street on the front of the houses in my life. Never. And it's only recently I heard a woman say, I want me privacy. So I promptly answered, you can have your privacy, but you'll have your burglars with it. You know? And that was the attitude of the day, you know? You can't hide me where there's no fences. And we had our own local Bobby. You know, we trained him too. But, you know, one of the biggest jokes they ever made was bringing in 6 o'clock clothes and onto the west coast trying to push it into a coal mine in town. They had as much show pushing it in and flying to the moon. Well, they can do that now. But so we used to train the cop, and the cop used to fit in. And what do we got today? Sometimes, if you're lucky, I haven't seen a police car come up here for months. So that's a change that the town never had. But probably the biggest change of everything I could think of, the biggest change in our town was the loss of the bathhouse. You know, I've sat and thought about it a lot. Every mother in Blackball, that bathhouse was worth a fortune because kids don't like to get scrubbed, and all that she had to do in Blackball was throw them a towel and say, get down that bathhouse, and they were off. And the bathhouse was always open, the miners' union never closed it off. Some odd times down there the kids would use all